Welcome to Higher Ed Live, the live weekly web show all about the world of higher education, where we cover topics related to digital development and professional empowerment. I am your host, guys, Seth Odell. Thank you so much for joining me today on Higher Ed Live. It is a very interesting and controversial topic that I hope is going to rile some people up a little bit, maybe, kind of ruffle the feathers. So keep that in mind. I'm going to need your help. Just like last week, I am actually flying solo. So it's not me hosting alone. Rather, it's me hosting with you guys. I'm going to be displaying all of your tweets throughout the show. So whatever you guys have to say, believe me, I'm going to hear it, and everyone else's as well, and it's going to be archived and part of the Higher Ed Live show. So definitely let me know what your thoughts are, because we're going to be showing them all night long. What's going on, guys? Are you ready to do this? Are we excited? Are we up for a fun, exciting episode of Higher Ed Live? I sure hope so. I do. It's going to be quite exciting, and it's going to be fun. As I said, I'm alone, but I got to tell you guys, next week I'm not. And next week is an amazing show. A lot of folks have been asked. There we go. Now we got it. Okay, this is next week's show. It's all about Facebook ads. It's a full crash course with our true expert, Nude Berthelsen. Nude, I really hope I pronounced your name correctly if you're watching. If not, I swear I will get it right by next week. But he is a Facebook ad expert, and he has been actually doing Facebook ad campaigns as part of his company for all sorts of higher ed institutions. So it's pretty exciting stuff, I think. I'm very much looking forward to having that show. If you guys are interested in Facebook ads, I'm telling you, next week is the show that you cannot miss. We're going to cover all of it. That being said, let's dive right in tonight, guys. As we get started, as always, I want to give a quick thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to Integral. Higher Ed Live is sponsored by Integral. They're the creators of the Schools app on Facebook. Be sure to check out their webinar series about how they can help you leverage Facebook to increase yield and retention. That happens this Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, and we'll send a tweet out later in the show with a link if you want to check that out. Also, big thanks to Omni Update. They are the leading web content management system provider for higher education, and the company's web CMS, OU Campus, is secure and scalable with great tools and features, deployment flexibility, and an awesome user community. In fact, it was the highest ranked CMS in customer satisfaction in a 2010.edu Guru survey. So, if you need a CMS, check it out at omniupdate.com. Let's get right into things going on today. We are talking all about bleeding talent and the future of higher ed leadership. It's a huge topic, and I'm really excited to discuss it. So, as we get into each show, we do a little something called the Weekly Five, and we do 5 stories from around the world that I think are worth noting or mentioning, and we have a few of them related to today's topic as well, so I'm pretty excited to get right in and talk about each of these. First one is just an interesting point. It was a blog post that went out that the Texas A&M president has too many Facebook friends, so what should he do? Essentially, here's a picture of him on a t-shirt. I guess he's a pretty popular guy. And what happened was he set up a personal Facebook page and started friending people. And as you guys probably know, there's a cap of 5,000 people. So unfortunately, he's reached 5,000 and he doesn't know what to do. So what should he do that is at 5,000 people? Obviously, I think, unfortunately, he should set up a fan page. I mean, that's what fan pages are there for. We can't wait for Facebook to up the friend limit because that's not going to happen anytime soon. And I just think I have to say one thing. I hate to say this because Texas A&M is on top of their stuff. They're awesome. But the problem here is not that he has 5,000 friends. The problem here is that this has been a rule since the get-go. So it's a lesson for all of us to learn, guys. If any of your chancellors, your presidents, any of the leadership, any of the people on campus are on Facebook, they probably don't know the ins and outs of the platform the way we do. Let them know that there's a problem if they're using their personal profile for a public-facing opportunity to talk to people, because that's not what it should be used for. I believe no public figure should ever use Facebook's profile to talk to people, simply because there's a limitation there, and that's unfortunate. And obviously, this president is learning that now. But really, it'd be nice if he had learned that maybe a year ago. Someone had stepped in and said, "Hey, you're doing a great thing. Let's move this over to the Facebook fan page," because it's an unfortunate thing that has to be there. But I still think that's the best place to interact as a personality. So, weekly 1, weekly 2. Really interesting post that YouTube put out. They did a big video series with some legal experts talking about fair use and YouTube. Now, why is this interesting? It's interesting because higher ed falls under fair use. So it says, when can we do mashups, right, guys? When are lip dubs legal and when are lip dubs not? What are these kind of videos that we're doing? And what point do we have to stick to copyright, Because the problem is, as you guys know, YouTube EDU partners only have 3 strikes and they're banned from YouTube. So if you have 3 copyright claims against your account that you lose, you could get banned. And yet all sorts of higher ed institutions all the time are putting copyrighted material up on YouTube. And I have to ask, what are you doing? Are you really thinking about the consequences? Well, this video series somewhat put to light some of the fair use issues, but I'm not going to lie. I watched through it. It's 34 minutes, first off. 34 minutes of legal advice. That's long. And I still don't know. I'll be honest. It kind of highlighted some key issues, so I thought it was worthwhile. But it just goes to show, in my opinion, how difficult fair use is and how confusing it really is. So I can't say it answered all of my questions, unfortunately. Next one going on, guys. Facebook is archiving all old groups. So what's going to happen if you have an old group, right? Where I'm sending out a link right now. It's everything you need to know all about Facebook groups. They're archiving the old groups, shifting them over to new groups. Check out that link if you are interested in finding out exactly what you need to do if this affects you, if you guys have an old Facebook group, because again, they're upgrading everything to the new Facebook group setup that they have going on. So next here, guys, we have the last two weekly fives, both fall right into today's topic. I'm really excited. One is that a college unfriends its social networking president. I don't know if you guys read this article yet. If not, you really, really should. Essentially, the president of the Rhode Island School of Design has been really, really forward-thinking in the way he uses social media to communicate with people, both part of his community, students, faculty, staff, and yet the faculty have felt in the process he's been talking a lot, but not listening and engaging with them, and there was a vote of no confidence against him recently. Very controversial stuff. It's a really great example, I think, of someone who is trying to be a new and different leader in higher education, who's trying to do something different and clearly not doing it right, but still, maybe is it enough to just try to be a bit of a different leader? It's really interesting. I would love your thoughts on it. And while we're on the topic of talking about, the heads of colleges and universities doing something different and whether or not it's a positive thing, any of you guys watch the show Undercover Boss? I know some of you guys out there watch it. Well, last week's episode had the chancellor of University of California, Riverside, go undercover. And if you haven't seen the show, essentially what it means is the chancellor went undercover, dressed up. This is him in disguise, terrible fake mustache. And he went undercover to interview and essentially work with his staff. They didn't know it was the chancellor. And the idea is that he gets a perspective behind the scenes about what life is like on campus and can better make decisions. I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I watched about half the episode, not going to lie. It didn't wow me that much. But I give him a lot of credit for trying something new and trying to find a way to communicate and understand your campus better. So often we always talk about the ivory tower. Here's a chancellor out there on the ground listening, but at the same time, using a kind of reality show to do it. I don't know. I'm curious what your thoughts are. I'm going to put that out on you guys. What do you think about him doing that? Is that courageous and cool, or is that just kind of a distraction from what he should be doing? So, I mean, I'm open either way. I'm really not decided on what it is. I guess in the end, though, I have to give him credit for trying something. It's nice to see different approaches to leadership, but not all approaches work, even if they are new. So, unsolicited shout-out of the week before we dive into the topic today. It's going to be going out to a little thing called Think Up. It's an application that lets you archive, organize, and chart your Twitter conversations. It lets you do Facebook status updates. And it's free. It's a really cool way to track stuff. If you're looking for a lot of information going on, I just think it's worth checking out if you guys are into seeing what kind of stuff you're doing with Twitter, how the conversations are going. It's got a lot of information, guys. There's a lot of cool stuff you can check out. So I would highly advise giving that a try at some point. It's totally worth seeing. So that's the unsolicited shout out of the week. And now we are here today to talk about today's big topic, bleeding talent and the future of higher ed leadership. So as I mentioned, guys, I am all alone today. I'm going to need your help. So please put out, any thoughts. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. I'd love to work with you guys on this conversation today. But let's go ahead and dive right in. And we're going to ask some tough questions today. So the first one, just to intro the topic so I make sure we're all on the same page here. We are on the verge of a new era in labor in the U.S. as a whole. There's a big shift going on. I'm going to get into the numbers in a minute, but there's a big shift in the labor market. And specifically, at the same time, higher education is at a crossroads. I mean, I think that's the best way to put it at this point, right, guys? That something is happening where we are, whether it's a bubble or something else, big changes are coming in higher ed. And, at the same time that all this is happening, we're losing the best talent that we have. I can, not tell you how many times amazingly talented people I know have left higher education, whether it's to go in the private sector or work for another company, and I'm worried about that. I'm worried that something is happening where the talent pool for the future is draining quickly. And I don't know if everyone is aware of it or if we're talking about it. I know the folks working it on our level we're aware of it, but I think it's important to have this conversation. So I really want to say, guys, that this is going to be an interesting conversation today, so bear with me. But we're going to talk today about why do people quit higher education? Why does higher education quit on their employees? and what can be done about it. So I just want to get right in, guys, and talk all about it. So, first off, guys, to talk about what's the problem going on in the U.S. right now. We are on the verge of the largest demographic shift in the human capital history. It's important to really put this in the context of the full workforce. Today's workforce has 78 million baby boomers, so it's born between 1940 and 1960, and 40% of the baby boomers working right now are eligible to retire in the next 2 years. So we're going to have a lot of folks retiring, and obviously folks tend to work a little bit longer in higher education leadership, but still what we have is a group of leaders that are going to be retiring, and my question is, who's going to be taking their place? Where is the future leaders, right? And that's where I think we have something that's a talent gap, and that's professionals under 35, because right now professionals under 35 are averaging only 20 months on a job. So if you think about that, this is not the baby boomer generation, where a lot of them stuck with one employer their entire careers. Average, if you're under 35, the average employee is spending 20 months on a job. And, what does that mean? To me, it means obviously that they're less willing to commit to an employer, that they're maybe less loyal to specific employers, or even less loyal to specific industries. So that's a really interesting position that we're at in the workforce in general right now in the U.S. But what about higher ed? Our industry as a whole is on the verge of a major, major change. This is something obviously Mark, if he's watching, Mark Greenfield talks about this all the time, But the one point that I think he made, or someone else made recently this week I read, is, is higher education in a bubble, or are we Detroit? What exactly is going on? Are we a bubble that's about to burst and industry is going to get turned on its head because our product has started to cost too much and it's inflated? Or are we just, are we the shell of an industry, or are we going to be a shell of what we are today in about 10 years? I don't know the answer to that, but I think we would all agree that something is going on, right? And it's kind of a nerve-wracking thing. So folks are leaving, though, because we're at a bridge in higher ed as a whole, and we're losing a lot of talented people. Now, a good tweet came up from Jason who said, are we actually losing the best and the brightest people in higher ed? Guys, I'm going to ask you this question. I don't have statistics on that. I have a lot of statistics. I've done a lot of research in the last few weeks, obviously. But I want to know what your thoughts are on this. I'm going to ask you this question, guys. Bottom line, do you think the people leaving higher ed are smarter, or are they better or worse as far as talent goes compared to the people that stay? I know it's a really broad, weird question, but I got to tell you, my experience is the folks that I've seen leave higher ed in the past 12 months have been really talented, valuable people. And there's been other people that stay that have not been as valuable. Now, valuable people do stay, but I think overall, if you compared the medium talent level of the person leaving to the person coming in or staying here, I see a personal shift. And then from my friends around other colleges and universities talking to them. Again, I don't know if that's the case. Some people might think differently. Obviously, Nick here is saying he thinks the talent pool's constantly refreshed every year. Again, this is definitely one question going out there right now. Do you think we're losing good talent or not? I think we're losing good talent at a rate to me that seems like it's drastic. Maybe it's the same. Maybe someone who's been hired longer than me can tell me. It's a good question. But if we are losing people, them, where are they going, right? I think folks are going, obviously, they're going private, they're going to corporations. Maybe they're staying in EDU, either working freelance or doing their own business. Or they're also talking about, obviously maybe going to an EDU-focused company or working for a vendor. And I don't know. It's a big question. So, first question of the day, guys, that I'm going to dive right into with you guys. And this is going out to specifically some people watching that have left higher ed. Some have come back, like Carlin. I want to know, why do people quit higher ed? I think if we need to define, if we're talking about the problem of people leaving higher education and the future talent pool that's going to lead our industry in 20 years, then we need to talk about why people are leaving in the first place. And I'm going to tell you what I think, and I want to know what you guys think too. Please, I'm going to be following all your tweets. Why do people quit higher ed? I see a few reasons. The first biggest one is lack of career opportunities. So many folks come into higher education and they take a job and they do a really good job at it, and then it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years later and they're still doing the same job. And I've seen a lot of folks that feel like they have hit a ceiling in higher education, where they feel like they essentially, can't get a better job because there's not a career path for them. And that goes into the next thing that I think, which is just, talking about promotions and raises. I think so few folks actually get promotions and raises in higher education, at least not compared to for-profit companies that I have friends working at. The rate is just very different. And again, this may be the same for government. It's not just higher education. But I think it's a good question. So, all right, let's pull it up. Nick thinks people are leaving for money and the promise of something better. Often it turns into an 80-hour work week. Interesting question. No, this is great. Jason says, I left my job because higher ed moves way too slowly in my field. Turns out I haven't left higher ed, though. And then, a good point from Dylan, the public-private talent pool is the same. It's just the private sector will pay more for talent. that's a really, really good point. Maybe it's not the size of the talent pool, but how folks within the talent pool are approached. So, guys, another thing to talk about with higher education, now this is a problem that can't really be fixed, but I think a lot of people also leave higher ed because depending on where you live geographically, there's not a lot of growth opportunities. It's not like you work in an industry where you can jump from one college to another. Now, if you're in Boston, you can definitely jump around, right? But if you're in a smaller town or a smaller college city or town, it's a lot harder. Maybe there's 2-3 schools you could move to, so it's not the same thing that even if you left your institution, it's easy to jump around. One example, this is PR agencies. If you work in a major city or anything where you work in a PR agency, man, PR agencies poach people all the time. They can jump around. You can go, Edelman over to Goldman Sachs. You just jump. You move around really fast, and that doesn't happen in higher ed. At least not unless you're in one of the major college cities. So that's something that's important to talk about. But guys, here's my big thing. Here's why I think a lot of people leave higher ed, and this is something that isn't talked about as much publicly. And I think people in higher ed sometimes, myself included, are not always proud or passionate about the work that they get to do. Not their work personally, but I think there's an issue of passion, in my opinion. I think that's an unfortunate truth. I think that it's not always... It's an example where you want to make a difference. My question is, how many folks... I know folks that have left higher education simply because they felt they weren't making a difference, that they weren't passionate about what they were doing. So that's one thing I think is a possible reason why some folks leave. Nick was a really good point. Unionization is a huge issue at a lot of universities as well, and I think that's a big question. So, Mark, great question. What is the future of unions in higher ed? Will they go the way of auto unions? I can't speak to, I'm going to speak directly to this, guys. I'm going to be real with you today, and that's what it's going to be. I was unionized in my first position in higher education, and it was a difficult position for me personally to be in. I'll put it that way. That I very much respected the role of the unions, but I have to say that on a personal level, it was very difficult. And I'm just, I don't know, it was a difficult position to be in. And so that's one thing, guys, question. So do people leave higher ed for money? That is one thing I hear all the time, and I don't think it's as true as people think. I think that people don't leave higher ed just for money. I think that it's more than that. One example I'm going to give you guys. I know a person that has recently left higher education, and they said this is the reason. They said they left higher education because it was too damaging to their portfolio. That's huge to me, that the work they were doing and asked to do was so subpar compared to the broader industry that they felt that they literally weren't doing any work that they could go show a future employer. I don't know. That to me is just really a kind of a scary thing. So, I just think that's really tough. Great point by Kyle here. Talent management is near impossible without a pay for performance model. Very good point. So, I just think that, and then, don't say we left because of lack of promotion. So it's lack of growth, right? Career paths. And, I don't know. I think it's really tough. And Jason, I think you're great. Yeah, moving slow. Exactly. The portfolio thing, I think, is really huge. And I don't know. I think that's an unfortunate thing. So, that's another thing, guys. Why else do people leave higher ed? Because their voices aren't being heard. And this is why I think so many folks leave higher ed and go into the freelance realm, right? We know a lot of folks that have gone to higher ed, left, and do their own thing, run their own companies, do consulting, other things. And a part of that is money, I'm sure. Okay, I agree. But I think there's an underlying fact that if you have to leave an institution for your voice to be heard in your industry, that's very, very scary. I think that it shows that you have the talent, people want to pay you for it, but that your own institution wouldn't listen to you. And I just think that that's an example that your voice was unable to move up the ladder, not just your own career. But I don't know, I think that's different. So, here's my next question I want to ask you guys as we're talking about this topic today, because this is a point that Michael Storner made earlier on Twitter, really good point, was leaving EDU for EDU companies, for vendors. Is that different than leaving EDU as a whole? Because I got to tell you guys, I do this show, Higher Ed Live, because I care about higher education, and I care about the community, and I care about you guys. I really, really love this industry. And I think it's important to make a very big difference, that there's a difference between leaving higher ed and leaving higher ed altogether as an industry. I think, can you be in EDU without being in an institution? That's my question. Can you be in EDU without being in an institution? I think you can, and I think that's why it's an important differential to make note of, is that people that leave EDU or higher education for vendors, they're not leaving higher ed. They're just shifting their role, and I just think it's important because if you care about higher ed, don't abandon it. So, are you if you go to a vendor? I don't know. I think that's an interesting question. So, let's check out what you guys are saying. So, I don't think higher ed damaged my portfolio. I think it helped that I ran the show. What hurt was staying for 10 years. That's a really good point. It's a really good point. I think that's, talks about windows in people's careers too, that, your career in the end of the day is kind of rungs on a ladder. And the question is whether or not you're able to move up in your institution, because a lot of times your job is a great pocket. My first job I had in higher ed was great. I was able to do a lot. I had a lot of freedom. And then I felt this point where like, okay, I'm wrapping up this chapter. And I was lucky enough that I had an opportunity to move within my institution. Had that not happened, I really don't know, what would be. So the vendor question, I think is interesting. What if you left and stayed with a vendor? So, yeah, Jason, very good point, man. I agree. I just think that the point needs to be made. So when I'm talking about folks leaving higher ed, I'm glad everybody seems to really agree that it's important to make that difference. Because when I say folks are leaving higher ed, I don't think like, we've abandoned everyone else. If you're working for a vendor, if you found another way to do it, doing consulting, good. You're still in the industry. You're still making a difference. So I think that's important to make note of, because you still care about education. And then again, it means that you care about the craft, more than you care about the environment. At the end of the day, if you care about what you do more than you care about where you do it, then it means you'll be okay with leaving a higher ed institution and going to a vendor. Because you care about what you do and the environment which it is, whether it's an institution or private, that matters second. I think that's really important. So what problems, by the way, is the point, if you guys, anyone out there is thinking about leaving higher ed, what problems does it solve to go from higher ed, college, university to a vendor, still within the education space? One is you can make a huge difference. Let's be honest, guys. People trust vendors like crazy, right? They pay you a ton of money to tell them what everyone else has been telling them for a long time, but it's important. You get better pay, usually better pay, and definitely, I think also usually a better portfolio, but that's also not always the case, because if your client is a college, university, they're really not looking for you to, raise the bar too much. So, what are we left with for the folks that stay? I find such a hard time finding people in higher education that are deeply proud and happy with their jobs. I find so many people that are incredibly proud of their industry, and they're incredibly proud of themselves, but at the end of the day, they're not happy with their job. They're happy with the broad picture maybe, but not where I'm working. I need my better career path. I need to move forward. I don't know. I realize in this economy, this is the case in a lot of places, but I really feel that the folks that are left, a lot of us are a little demoralized, we're exhausted. And, if we're losing good people, I will tell you this, that I think the more good people we lose, the more bad people we keep. I'll be honest. I would say, and this is, again, just my opinion, that I think the talent pool in higher ed is depleting, personally. I think we're losing good people, and the people that I see broadly, generally speaking, coming in are not as talented, or if they're young, they're getting burned out too. So it's just harder to keep up with that. So Mark made a bold prediction. Let me see if I can't go back and pull that up. He says, bold prediction, many aspects of higher ed will be outsourced. Be ready, it's coming. I'm with Mark. I got to agree. So if it's being outsourced, guys, who's going to work for those vendors, right? That's a really interesting shift to think about. We're talking about bleeding talent. Maybe it's not as much that we're draining the talent pool in higher ed. Maybe it's that the talent pool is going to be shifting. It's going to be shifting from a college or university to a private sector vendor. So maybe that's all it is. Is the talent pool shifting or is it draining? I don't know. I think it's an interesting point. And I guess, exactly. Great point from coming in now. Sorry, about job lock, people staying just for the benefits of retirement. Term golden handcuffs, right, guys? I hear that all the time. So it's a really good point that this is, we're talking about maintaining mediocre talent. Totally, guys. I have to say, I'm really with it. So guys, we're losing good people, and we're losing them for a lot of different reasons. We're losing them for money. We're losing them for the inability to have a talented portfolio. We're losing them for the no career growth, and we're keeping a lot of people that aren't as talented. So that worries me. So the question is, what do we do to fix it? I mean, this is my open-ended question to you guys. I have some solutions I'm going to throw out, but I'm really curious what you guys think too. I really am. So the first one is, I really think higher education needs to allow their employees to do good work. I don't think a lot of institutions do that. I have seen so many talented people come in and out of higher ed that are incredibly talented that come in and they realize that they can't do good work, great work. They're asked to do mediocre things. They're expected of it. And define good work, isn't it? All right. One example, if you're talking about a designer doing really great design work that the industry cares about. If you're talking about a videographer that might have left an institution recently, doing video work that you're proud to show your peers. Now, if you're a designer, if you're a videographer, if you're in that career path, your peers are not higher ed employees necessarily. Your peers are fellow videographers, fellow designers. That goes across your actual career environments, whether it's higher ed, public sector, private. If you're like a designer, your peers are designers. So comparing your work to theirs, is it good? Is it industry standard? Is it groundbreaking? Is it something people are going to care about? Or is it mediocre? Again, this is just my thoughts, guys. It's kind of broad, but one example is I've been going around for the last couple months, and I agree, by the way, Mark's saying people need to fail forward. I totally agree, and I think there's only two ways to do that, and one is exactly what Kyle is saying, which is stop asking permission, and the other one is to have an industry that accepts us failing forward, and that needs to be a cultural shift on the part of higher education. In my opinion. And I really think that's something that has to happen. I've been going around for the last 2 months asking the Google question to a lot of people in higher ed, saying, what would you do with 20% time? What would you do if your boss told you 1 day a week or 2 hours a day, whatever it is, you could do whatever you wanted. Now, I didn't let people say, I would do so many cool things. I actually asked people, give me a project. I've been doing this with people around at conferences and other areas. The projects that I have heard about are so awesome. And it's just so amazing to me that there's these ideas out there, but people aren't doing it, right? And I'm saying, and if your boss gave you 20% time, what could you do? 1 day a week, do anything you wanted that fell within your job description remotely. But the problem is they're not doing it. So that falls on two people, though. It falls on higher ed for not letting people do it, whether it's permission or not giving them enough time, enough resources to do it. But also, it does fall on us. And that's why I have to ask the question, are we not pushing ourselves enough? Are we easing off? For folks that say, I had this amazing idea, I would do it if I had that much more time. Can you find that time? I don't know. I just think that's an interesting point. So what would you do if you had 20% time? If you had 1 day a week, you do anything you want in higher ed. And then when you have that answer, ask yourself, have you brought that to your boss? Have you tried to do it without permission? Are you trying to do it? Because when I ask that question, I hear so many great ideas, and then I don't hear anyone implementing them. And I'm a victim of this too. People tell me, what would you do with 1 day a week to do anything you wanted? And I'm like, I have so many amazing ideas. And then I ask myself, why am I not doing it then? Why am I just blaming the institution and my environment for the fact that I'm not taking that huge leap on an amazing project? I don't know. I think I feel that way, that's kind of communal blame. And that's unfortunate. So, yeah. So, Nix they have 3 hours per week in their web department. That's how the CMS event calendar and SMS tools were created. That's awesome. That's awesome. Nick Denardo said that. That's really awesome. So I think that's really cool. So that's a great point, guys. Now, there's a few other things that I think we need to change in higher ed. One thing I want to ask you guys about is there a dialogue at your institution for career path? So throw it out there. Can you talk to your boss and your boss's boss about your career path? Because a lot of folks I ask in higher ed, the answer is no. And this is a big, big problem too. I think that if we are expecting to have a talent pool that's going to be able to supply future leaders for higher education. So in 10 years, when all the college presidents are retired for the most part, who's going to replace them? Who's going to be their next, moving up in command, whether it's provosts, vice chancellors, or even lower, the directors of marketing or media relations? My question is, if the people working for you now are talented, are they able to talk to you about that? Are you able to share with your boss saying, I want to be in your position in 10 years, or I want to be farther up the ladder? Because I found a lot of folks that work in higher ed that aren't allowed to have that conversation. And I think that's really unfortunate. I think you absolutely, positively must have a dialogue about career paths. Because if you don't have a visible career path to provide leadership, one, for the employee, they're going to leave. If they don't see themselves having a career path with the institution, they're going to leave. And for the institutions themselves, you better have a visible career path to provide leadership for your talent pool. Because if you're not thinking now, how can I take the people that are here and move them here for a few years from now, what's going to happen? They're not going to be there. And I just think that's something on both sides. We need to be able to have these conversations openly. And, wow. I'm just reading Jason's thing. He's had that conversation. He was advised to stop using social media. Okay, guys, that brings up the broader thing about our culture, If that's the case, that you're having that conversation and your only response is stop using social media, then you did the right thing by leaving. That culture is shocking to me. I mean, that's so unfortunate that if it's that bad, I don't know. That scares me a little bit. But I think that it needs to be top down. College presidents need to tell people, have that conversation with your staff. There needs to be a plan for leadership on the university side, and that's scary to me if you tried to have that. And yeah, good point, Nick. I'm saying that new people trying to do that can scare the boss. I'm definitely not saying this is something you run up to your boss 2 months into the job, but you need to be able to have that dialogue. I've been lucky enough that, I did with my current boss. My current boss is a wonderful woman. She's great to work with, and I'm able to talk to her about that. She doesn't expect that I'm going to be in the same position for 20 years, but being able to have that conversation, get advice, is very important, and I think should be required on both sides of things. It's really, really good to hear about that stuff. So, the broader thing beyond just dialogue is, here's a question. What about dialogue regarding freelance work? Question, guys. Are you allowed to, or do you choose to tell your company, your college, university, about any freelance work you do? Almost everybody I know in higher ed does some kind of freelance. My question is, do you guys hide it, or do you talk about it? The easy thing to do is hide it. A lot of times you could argue that college and universities don't have a right to get involved with your freelance work if it's not directly involving a competitor and if it doesn't violate any kind of employee contract you have. But let's say it doesn't violate a contract, and let's say that it's not with a direct competitor or anything. Are you allowed to talk about it? Here we go. So Carlin says she didn't talk about it when you did higher ed. So Carlin, why did you not talk about it? I'm curious. Is it just because here's the thing, guys, and I get why I didn't used to talk about it. So some people are required to do so. Okay, so openly keep them aware of my facial situation. Okay, good. So the reason I bring this up is Mark Greenville put out a great post, guys. I'm gonna get the link out about people doing freelance work, and it was I'm putting the tweet up right now, guys. It was this is an older blog post by Mark, but it's great saying why are we all doing freelance work? There's something wrong with that, and if you're doing freelance work, I don't know. If you're doing freelance work, in my opinion, you're not fulfilled with your job. Either you're not fulfilled financially, you're not fulfilled emotionally or passionately, you don't feel like you're doing good enough work. But whatever the reason you're doing freelance work, I think you need to tell your boss. I mean, there needs to be a conversation with your supervisor saying, I am doing this work because, and have that conversation because I'm not getting paid enough for my work, or I want to get paid more. I am doing this because I want to make more of an impact in my industry, and I can make more of an impact outside of my current position than simply inside it. It's an opportunity to have a conversation. I'm not saying that we should all run out there and just yell to our bosses, hey, I'm doing all this other work. But I just think that it's important to say that, it's important to talk about that. And then we see some people here saying, my supervisor routinely forwarded freelance work for other units to me. That's awesome. That's really cool. I've done some of that stuff too. I think it's important to have that conversation. And here's the point. I started doing freelance work because I hated my job. And and that's an unfortunate truth. And I guess in those situations, when you start doing freelance, maybe you can't really have that conversation with your boss. But I just think Mark's post was really dead on. Because, I've been asked before, why do you do higher ed live? And I tell people I do higher ed live because I want to have a broader dialogue with the industry. I want to talk with people from other colleges and universities, and I want to, in some small way, help provide information that make people either help them with their jobs or give them resources. And I want to do those things because I can't do it in my current job. I feel a little siloed. I feel kind of boxed in, obviously. And I'm not afraid to say that. And if I'm asked, I tell the people that. I'm not replacing what I do in my job. I go to work and I do a great, great job. But the question is, how much effort do you put out with freelance? And imagine if you did all that for your current job, right? Imagine if you worked a 60-hour week. You came home and hustled. I put in roughly 60, 70 hours a week, but only 40 of that is with my day job. The rest of it's all freelance or outside work. So the question is, imagine if I was so passionate about what I did during the day, that's all I did. That would be pretty awesome. And unfortunately, it's not the case for myself or most people. And so we look for a little bit more, which is okay. But obviously, again, great question from Mark in that post about what do we do about that? Is that okay? Is this thing something I think very much worth thinking about? So this goes back to the broader point, I think, with higher ed, is that institutions need to listen. We need to have this open dialogue, I think, about where we're going as employees. Because right now, I feel like most people don't. We talk to each other, but we don't talk necessarily to our supervisors. There's not a dialogue about our career paths. There's not a dialogue about, where we're going, what's available to us for a lot of folks. And so in turn, we talk to each other and we go off and do freelance work. And I don't know. I just think that there needs to be more of a dialogue. There's no committees in freelance work. That's a really, really good point. Okay, so what's the ideal work environment for you if you could have it in higher ed? Great question coming in. So let's ask that, right? So what would the ideal work environment be? I think it's simple. Work that you're passionate about. You get to do good work. And again, Nick asked, what is good? Define good work. Good work is what you define it. Do you think what you do is really good? And that's whatever standards you set yourself to. If the bar that you hold yourself to is simply the bar within your institution or your industry, totally okay. That's great. If the bar is something you set personally that I want to be the best or the really, really good at something, then that's different. Good work is defined by the person that does it. And if you don't feel like you're doing good work, then you're probably not going to keep doing it. You're going to go find a way to do it. So my ideal work environment for higher ed is an opportunity to talk about my career with my boss, to tell people where I want to go, to be supported, and to have my institution invest in me what I invest in them. I don't think the trade-off is enough to simply say I come in every day for 8 hours and you pay me and I leave. If I'm going to come in and bring my heart with it, I'm going to be passionate, I'm going to give a shit. If you want me to show up every day and give a shit and fight those battles of inches with people to make our product better, then I expect you to give me enough decency to talk to me about my future and how I can possibly grow within you or not. Because I'm growing. I'm either growing with you or I'm growing without you. And the problem is I don't think enough institutions are willing to have that conversation because it's a punch clock mentality. And that is what's unfortunate. It's come in, punch the clock, do your work, go home. But you got to show up. And if people are showing up and they're really there, not just physically there, but they're really there, then let them know. I've so many times seen broad, again, this is college universities across the country, where mediocre employees are treated exactly the same as talented employees. No benefits, no bonuses, no even verbal conversations. Instead, what happens is, who's the person that does all the work? Let's keep dumping it on them. That's what I see. I see good people, become the linchpin, right? As Seth Godin would say, the linchpin that gets dumped on. And the question is, how long are you going to let that happen? How long, if you're the linchpin in your office, does that mean you're actually doing amazing work and everyone needs you? Or does that mean you're like the impromptu IT guy that fixed their mouse and you're the one that updates this thing on the site that's super easy and annoying and you're the one that does all the mediocre work? So that's my question. I just think that, it needs to be a back and forth, that the work that you do is received and understood and there's something put back to you. So I don't know. I just think that my ideal work environment is people are able to do good work, care about what they're doing, and have a conversation about not only the work they're doing, but themselves. Comment here from Kyle. Higher ed is not an entitlement program. Not sure what that means, man. If you want to elaborate a little bit, would love to go into that as well, but I'm not sure exactly where you're going with that one. So, yeah, good point, Nick. That's kind of what I'm saying, is that you want something done in this department, just ask so-and-so. They can get it done. And that's great to be that person, that gets something done, that can push things through. But then what happens to that person? So often I find that bosses are afraid of losing that person because they're the one that does all the dirty work, that gets everything done, and that person just keeps getting moved on and dumped on. So that's one thing. The other thing I got to say, guys, real quickly, not to shift gears too much a little bit, but my question is this. People are going to leave higher ed, both good and bad, obviously. I think it's not too much to ask our institutions to make good hires. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I am concerned about hiring in higher ed. I see a lot of times what's rewarded is seniority, loyalty in the only sense of working somewhere, and not always bringing in the best and the brightest people that are in the applicant pool too. So not just people inside higher ed, but also bring people from the outside too. I just see so many times that happens. I know of a college, I'm not going to name names, but has a 5-person marketing division, and not one of those people held a marketing job before they did it. So you have an entire department that's never done marketing before. Every one of them is new. That, to me, I'm sorry, there's just no way you didn't get someone that applied that was qualified. Everyone, of course, happened to work at the institution beforehand. So I don't know. That to me was a big, big moment. So we got Dylan. I wonder if higher ed's biggest problem is there's no failure. Schools really go out of business. No high risk, high reward. That, I think, is exactly why profit-based companies do make changes so quickly, and folks that are good can move up the ranks so quickly, obviously. So I think that's a really good point. And I think as this industry is going to make a shift, that will probably change, but I don't know. I think it's a really good point that, when the work you do reflects directly to how much money you make, you'd like to think you could move up faster. But then again, folks in admissions that make a big difference, that doesn't really happen either. So I just think the hiring is something I would ask, is that it's loyalty alone is not enough to get a job in higher ed. It shouldn't be, at least. So I think that's a good point to make. I think that's interesting. So, yeah, guys, I don't know. I think, I just want to read a quote real quick from something that came up. This is just an article that's been going on, and it's just, here's a quote from an article I just read. The likely wave of impending retirements among college presidents presents a unique opportunity to further diversity diversify the leadership of American higher education. This will require both that a diverse pool of talent leaders are ready and willing to ascend to the presidency, and that institutions become more willing to select leaders that do not fit the traditional profiles. That was just from an article I recently read about who are going to be the college presidents, of the next 20 years. Interesting point about diversifying the talent pool. I don't think they simply meant diversity based on race or ethnicity, which also is a really interesting point, though, I think, to bring up. But about the just diversity in general. Right now, 25% of college presidents don't have a doctorate. 75% do. Actually, sorry, I think it's shifted about 30%. But is that going to change? Who are they going to look for to be our leaders? Not just leaders at the top, but leaders all the way through. What's the criteria people are going to look for? I think that's just something to bring up. So, now guys, it's not all about higher ed having a problem. I think there's also a problem a little bit with us. So, hold on. I want to pull this real quick. Nick, we just got a new president, old CFO of Ford, no higher ed experience, is making amazing changes in the right direction. That's awesome. That's awesome. I think officially I am going to go work with Nick DeNardis. I think we should also go work for Nick, because some of the stuff he's saying is awesome. The fact that they have free time to do some of their own projects. Hiring someone from outside higher ed is great. One argument I've made a lot in higher ed is, because again, it's not just about us as a community working in higher ed. It's about people coming in too. Hire someone great from the outside. Blow my mind with the kind of person that you can bring in, because guess what? What do we do have in higher ed? Generally speaking, we have job security. Don't tell them what's coming. We also have amazing benefits, great vacation, the kind of stuff that someone working really long hours wants to do, right? I have made an argument for the past 2 years. The best place to get talent for higher ed is to go into politics and get people from there. There are so many campaign managers that have the background in marketing, PR, media relations, development and fundraising, web. If you find a talented campaign manager, they know how to work with people in all these areas. And yet that's an arena where a lot of people don't get tapped to come into higher ed. Very interesting. So I think there's these untapped leadership pools. And I think that's okay. It's not, again, just about fostering the talent within. It's about talent in general. People working in higher ed feeling like if they work hard, it's going to come up. So, all right, Nick said he's going to officially hire everybody. So, well, yeah, he's got to come to Detroit, though. So I guess I guess it's not perfect. But, yeah, great stuff's happening there. I don't know. I like it. So, Nick, if you ever want to, man, I'd love to hear more about what's going on, because that does seem like some really cool changes. I think that's really great. So, I don't know. I just think it's really good. So, guys, it's not just about the institution, though, right? I'm going to make a point today to ask more of us. And I don't want to offend anybody. I mean, I believe a lot in my job, but there's a couple things I want to say. What are you passionate about? What are you passionate about? Are you passionate about our industry, or are you passionate about the job you do within it? Either answer is totally okay, but think about it. And the reason is because if you're passionate about marketing, you can go do marketing anywhere. But if you're passionate about higher education, if you're passionate about students, please remember that. Because if you do want to go, I'd hate to see you leave, but, stand by. Because higher education is going to be changing in a big way, and you can still change it from inside an institution or out. So there's a big difference, in my opinion, between leaving higher ed and leaving an institution to go work for a vendor or work on a private sector company related to education. Big difference. And either answer is okay. But know that answer. Look inside yourself and ask, what am I passionate about? Because I'll tell you, I am passionate about higher education. I'm also really passionate about marketing and PR. But I'd be hard-pressed to leave, this industry as a whole. I would be. And I know that, and I think it's important just to think about it. Whatever your answer is, just think about it. Also, there's so many people I have seen that have felt defeated in higher education, beaten down. My response is really simple today, and it's just that please never forget that higher education is a battle of inches. Choose your battles wisely, but don't stop fighting. It really is a battle of inches. I hate, the one thing that gets me so much is seeing really talented people that just are totally defeated. That really kills me. And I really hope that folks do their best not to let that happen. So I think that's something to keep in mind. And, don't give up what you're passionate about. So that's the tough thing, though. What are you passionate about? So I love seeing people coming in here saying they're passionate about students, and I don't know. I think it's interesting. So I don't know. I just think I hope you guys keep that stuff in mind. So, the problem is why did I want to talk about this show today? I want to talk about it because I'm deeply concerned about the future of higher education. We talk a lot about the problems that are coming and how our industry is going to be shifting and changing. And I'm deeply concerned that there won't be the talent pool here to sustain it. That bothers me a lot. That, right now, as I said, 40% of baby boomers are going to be eligible for retirement in 2 years. And 10 to 15 years from now, we're likely to have a near 100% shift in not only college presidents and chancellors, but also the age demographic they represent. There's going to be a generational shift at the ivory tower, and that's going to ripple all the way down. And my question for all of us is, are we going to be here to stick it through? Because ultimately, there's some big changes coming. And, not only are we going to stick it through and be here, but our voice is going to be heard. Are we making a difference? And if not, then what's the point? I just see, when I look at this, that more and more people are leaving higher ed because they weren't appreciated, they weren't given the opportunities, and they just weren't able to do the awesome things that they can do in the environment that was provided to them. And that scares me a lot. So I wanted to talk about this because I don't know what the future holds. I really don't. The future is uncertain, but certainly a major change is coming. That's for sure. And who's going to define what the future model of higher education is? Who's going to build it and who's going to support it? Who's going to be a president or provost in 10, 15 years? Who's just going to be the director of marketing or web? That's really important. And I think the other thing is someone's going to have to define our roles for people. I think the current generation of leadership doesn't understand. A lot of folks watching, you guys are part of marketing, part of web. If you are, I think a lot of folks in higher ed their role isn't understood yet at all. I think higher ed doesn't get a lot of things related to the web. And, the question is, are they going to? Is the next generation going to make that happen? And who's going to be there to help define it? So, I don't really know. I think that the best thing at the end of the day, I hate to say this, is just, make sure you're passionate about what you do. Don't ever lose your passion. If you know what you're passionate about and you end up not being passionate about the job you have, get a different job. Bottom line. And it's unfortunate, but, I still don't have a solid answer. I know things that I ask of my institution, but all of that falls down on a cultural change. That's really what this comes down to, right, guys? It's a cultural change. Be able to talk about your job truly with your boss. Be able to have an identified career path. Be able to be supported. Be able to do really good work. Raise the bar in your industry and feel proud of what you do. This is a cultural shift. I don't know if that's coming. Now, we are, in a way, we're absolutely have an opportunity for that cultural shift. We have, our industry is at the precipice of a big, big change. So maybe that could happen or maybe it won't. I just don't know if all of us are going to be around to see it through. And I don't blame people for leaving. This is not a show about, oh, you left higher ed, you abandoned us. At the end of the day, you do you. You work out for yourself. And if you aren't passionate, fulfilled with the work that you're doing, find a way to be. But I just think we need to find an environment that fosters the talent that we already have. I want people to as the new saying goes, get excited, make things, do good work, build. And, guys, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, so the reason I wanted to have this show is because what bothers me most about this is I find there is not enough dialogue around it. Now, you're going to say, what are you talking about? People talk about leaving higher ed all the time, but all the dialogue is negative. And it's all about, I'm quitting because my job is terrible. And it is, but I would think we need to step back away from ourselves and have a conversation about the industry a little bit as a whole. We need to have a conversation about the fact that I think, personally, if you don't agree, that's fine, I think we are draining some of the best talent out of our industry. I see so many amazingly talented people leaving, and that we are going to have a major problem if we can't keep the talented people that come through our doors. And I think we need to be able to talk about it and have this conversation and not be afraid of retribution about it and be able to talk to our bosses about our careers and what's happening. So, I just think that it's really important at the end of the day to do that. Great point coming up too, though. Here that Michael just said, I quit because I'm moving. That's an unfortunate truth about our industry. That geographically is that's really tough. You can't jump around like you can in a lot of other things. So, guys, that's pretty much going to wrap the show today. I know it was a weirder show, big open topic, but I just want to have this conversation. I think it's really important that we talk about this. And I don't have the answers. I don't know what's coming next. But at the end of the day, I just have to ask everybody who's still in higher ed to dig deep and do good work and give a shit. Don't ever be one of those people that shows up and doesn't give a shit. Because that kills me. Don't emotionally check out when you're physically still present. So show up, do good work, give a shit, tell us about it, and let's talk. Let's demand more. Even if it doesn't come, at least we know we go down swinging. And again, it's a battle of inches. So that's going to be Higher Ed Live for the week, guys. Please make sure to tune in next week. We got a great show all about Facebook ads. I tracked down a guy who has done a ton of campaigns for colleges and universities. Going to do a very, very detailed tutorial all about higher education. So please check that out. And one last time, thanks to Integral, so one of our sponsors. They are a great group of people. They're the creators of the Schools app on Facebook. You can check out their webinar series about how they can help you leverage Facebook to increase yield and retention. And also thanks to Omni Update, the leading web content management system provider for higher education. That's it, guys. Tune in next week. Great show on Facebook. We're kind of back. I'll bring in another guest. And please, let's keep this dialogue going. Let's give a shit. And let's have some fun music as we play this one out, right? So, see you guys next week.